I'm Lydia Malamed Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of APAD, the Association of International Photography Art Dealers, and the Photography Show, our flagship annual event here at the Park Avenue Armory. I'm thrilled to welcome you today to this new collaboration that I'm so excited about with Adobe. I want to thank Carly, of course, and her team. They've been a pleasure to work with, and we're really excited to start off this partnership that I hope will continue to grow with a panel about the interventions of photography. As a technological medium and one that so often leads the pack in innovation, this feels so vital at this moment in time. I'm going to hand the mic over to you right now, but I just want to say a massive thank you to the artists for joining us today. We are a fair of artists, and we are so excited for you to hear this conversation. Thank you very much for joining us.
Testing. Hello. Hi, everyone. How's it going? Good. Thank you so much, Lydia. Welcome, everybody. I'm Elise Swopes, Evangelist at Adobe. Basically, I'm in the church of Adobe, as you say. And I'm so glad to be in this room with all of you. What an incredible room to be in. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's gotten much better outside today as well. So let's get into it. Now, photography has always been a conversation between light and shadow, between the photographer and the subject, between what's in frame and sometimes what's deliberately left out, right? So today we're going to dig into a new layer of conversation, intervention. Okay, now the tools, the techniques, the decisions, from the darkroom to generative AI, yes, I said it, that shape how images are made and what they mean. Now, I have three extraordinary artists with us today. Let me introduce them briefly, and we'll get right into it. But just as an FYI, we won't have a Q&A today, but if something sparks in your mind during the conversation, make sure you write that down. Just jot it down, and then we'll all be around after to answer those questions for you. Does that sound good with everybody? Lovely, lovely. Okay, cool, my friends. So let's introduce our awesome panelists today. We have Aundre Larrow from Brooklyn, is a Brooklyn-based photographer and director whose work explores identity, place, and human connection. You may know him from his Adobe Creative Residency, woo woo, where he developed Echo Chamber, a multimedia project that blends photography, video, and audio to ask what geography does to the people inside of it. He's received the Elmer Imig Award and has been named in Lit List's Under the Radar Photographer. Aundre, welcome.
Thank you.
Of course. Yes. Okay, my friends. Now we have David Alekhuogie. He is a Los Angeles-based artist, photographer, and educator whose practice spans sculptural collage, fabric-based compositions, and lens-based work rooted in questions of race, gender, power, and visibility. His work has been shown at the MoMA, the Getty, the Hirshhorn, LACMA, the list goes on, my friends. He holds an MFA from Yale and teaches at Chaffey College and UCLA Design. David, we're so glad you're here. Okay, my friends. Now we have Gail Albert Halaban. Gail Albert Halaban is a New York-based fine art photographer best known for Out My Window, a long-running series where she photographs from one apartment to another, city to city, country to country, revealing the quiet intimacy of how people share space. Now her work is held in the George Eastman Museum, Yale, the Nelson Atkins, the Getty, and she's published multiple monographs including Vis-a-Vis and Italian Views. And she is currently seeking a publisher for her new book, okay, about New York City, so keep that in mind. Gail, we're so happy to have you as well. Woo, what a panel, my friends. Okay, so let's start with something quick. Okay, because I like to get it started this way. So just one word or phrase you'd like to use to describe your creative philosophy. Doesn't have to be the most important thing about your work, just the first true thing that comes to mind. So Aundre, we'll start with you.
Curiosity.
Okay, short and sweet, love
Yeah.
it. Gail?
Accountability.
Accountability, here we go.
Accountability.
Love it.
Call and response.
Call and response. Okay, very active. I like this. Okay, so Aundre, first, because of your residence origin story at Adobe, I feel like this kind of speaks to you quite
Sure.
a bit. Thinking back on your careers, what's something, a person, a place, a specific piece of work that really bent the trajectory of your career?
There is a photo series from Chicago-based photographer Dawood Bey called School Portraits. And when I was a freshman in college, our art history teacher had us go to our local museum. And there's a particular portrait of I think a young Sikh boy. And the quote said, you know, after 9/11, folks only see me a certain way, but the color of my skin is less important to me than the color of my soul. And like, for whatever reason, that I can draw that image for you from memory, but that image was really important to me because before then, I was taking photography just kind of for fun, like pictures of my friends and making little yearbooks and stuff. But I was like, I think 17 at that point, staring at that image, and it just like really spoke to me about what an image can mean outside of like what it means to me and like my 6 friends or whatever.
Gotcha. And was that kind of the moment, like you realized what kind of artist you wanted to be? Or did it kind of like sneak up on you as you were experiencing that?
I think it stuck up on me. I think that now, as I've been doing a lot more motion work, it's been really interesting to understand that there are key image points that have been moments of inspiration, but there are a lot of film and motion points that have been as well. And for me, a piece of excitement is kind of matching the ability of motion to place you in a moment and make you feel something, and then how a still can do that in a single frame. So I would say like these things happened over time, but that moment I remember staring at that image for a very long time, and then I think they ended up closing the museum and telling me to get out. So that was a really helpful just moment where I was like, oh, I hadn't considered this before.
Of course, absolutely. And of course, I'm calling on certain people, but if you guys feel inspired to answer any questions, you can, of course. But I think for me, one of the things that kind of helped me navigate early in my life, not just my career, was I was a 10-year-old using one of those old blue iMac computers back in the day, using this program called KidPix, and it basically kind of solidified the way I wanted to create, which was just how I looked at something and what I wanted to put on it, and that's kind of really never left me, especially in the way that I create. And just FYI, we're running artwork right now on the screens of all of our artwork, from mine to Gail's to Aundre's and David's. And so take a look at those as we speak on all these different experiences.
It's interesting that the computer inspired your art, because I actually had the opposite. I was like this nerdy science kid. My first grade science fair, I made a camera out of a cereal box.
Oh.
But then as a teenager, I took a workshop with Larry Fink, and he's like, don't worry about technology. Start just thinking about why you're taking a picture. What is the human relationship you have with people? And I kind of stopped thinking about the science. I actually teach scientists now photography, but my work is all about human connection and empathy. And I love the digital tools, but they're secondary to that primary point.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So that kind of leads us into our next question, actually, because I think your practice, at least from my perspective, is really rooted in this very intimate kind of experience. I mean, you're in people's spaces. Granted, as I've studied your work, I realize you probably get permission for most, if not all of these. Yeah, because people will question like, oh, how is she? Yeah, I'm sure because you're connecting with like neighbors and you're really going through the process to make sure people are comfortable, which I appreciate. So it'd be interesting to hear how you kind of frame this shift. Now, photography has always kind of involved intervention in some way, shape, or form, from the darkroom to Photoshop to compositing. Like, what feels genuinely different about the moment we're in right now?
Again, I'll go back to accountability. Like,
Right.
my pictures could end up anywhere. I'm photographing people in their homes. So I definitely feel like I have to go in with the best intentions. I don't know where the picture is going to end up, but I need to make sure that I'm not revealing anything people don't want to reveal. So all of my pictures are with consent and collaboration. And I've been working on this project for 20 years, and one of the reasons I've been working on it for 20 years is some of the pictures I want to make, it takes that long to build the trust and the relationships.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'd be just as curious, and this is a whole other thing, but how are you getting access to a building across the street of someone else's building that you've been trying to get in touch with
I mean,
for so
it
long?
really takes spending a lot of time in the neighborhood I want to photograph and getting to know people and engaging neighbors to meet their neighbors. So if I'm in Istanbul, I'm probably not going to be able to meet the neighbors, but people involved. I have a dog. That's very helpful. She will stop and talk to anybody. So I've met all my neighbors that way.
That's cool. Yeah, I have cats, 3 cats, so I have no idea who my neighbors are.
No,
No.
dogs are much better than cats.
Okay, so David, now your work is across sculpture, fabric, lens-based work. Does this question land differently for you, as someone who's like practiced crossing those mediums already?
It does. I feel like I'm the exact opposite. I don't ask for permission. It's not something that I've been interested in. It's something that I've been thinking about like a lot, just in terms of the market for art, the sort of transformation of people's like identity into the market. It seems like that is kind of part of what it means to be an artist now, is to be somewhat of a brand or a commodity or something, you know? And so I think a lot about things like permission and ownership, and you know, that has always been kind of a part of what's driven a lot of my decisions that are oftentimes politically loaded, you know, and so I think through photography primarily because that was the first sort of medium that I discovered had the potential for me to have a kind of storytelling ethic that didn't like need explanation. You know, that I didn't need permission or sort of license to sort of participate, you know, and it was DJing first and then photography after that, you know, and so I think I sort of respond first and then ask for just like hope for, you know, some sort of connection or some sort of kinship, and what I would like to think is earnestness. I think that's why it's so important for me to kind of have an internal ethic around everything I do, because I'm going to do it regardless, you know, because for me, a lot of it is about, you know, reclaiming, retelling, augmenting history in ways that I feel are important when it comes to communities that are on the margins, you know? So I think I'm trying to do kind of restorative history in a way, and sometimes when you're negotiating, you gotta like overtalk a little bit, you know? And, but there's diplomacy there as well, you know?
For sure. And do you consider that your type of intervention?
Yeah. I would say a kind of more aggressive institutional diplomacy, right? Is what I would call it, because you know, it's interesting. A lot of the work that I've made is in direct criticism to a lot of historic institutions that the work is now in the collection of, right? So there's this sort of I'm complicating myself in this whole narrative, right? And so this is a part of the process. I remember vividly sometime in 2018 when Barack Obama was talking about his presidency, that there's like a psychic cost to diplomacy, you know? And I think that, you know, being a part of institutions when you feel like your history has been compromised is what that like feels like. And you can't just like come in and like knock over everything. You know what I mean? I feel like there's things that have happened. There's roadmaps. There's successes and failures and all different types of however you see your activism. But I know for sure that just coming in and knocking over everything doesn't work.
Absolutely. And do you usually realize that as you're capturing or in post?
Honestly, it's in the publishing of works, the collecting of works, the negotiating of contracts, the dealing with the behind the scenes of the art world and the sort of front-facing aspects of the art world, and trying to manage what your work is about, as opposed to maybe how it exists as a commodity, right? Because you can have all of these things that are for sale that might end up over somebody's couch or something, but at the same time you're saying to yourself, like, this is a political act, at the same time. So I think a lot of times it doesn't happen at the point of capture. A lot of times that's just research, impulse, things that feel far less grounded in any kind of desire for it to be publicly facing.
Yeah.
But then, like, when you're dealing with what it means to, be a part of an institution that you're criticizing, then that's when that kind of question comes up.
Of
right?
course.
Yeah,
you seem like the epitome of this quote that I always hear, especially as a photographer, a street photographer, was always, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. Yeah. So I feel like you're the epitome of that. Okay, Gail, so for you, and I know we've touched on this a little bit, like you're intervening in someone else's private space. Do you consider that intervention? Are you setting up the shots? Like, what does that mean for you?
For me, I definitely think my work is intervention. It's an analog intervention. I am kind of a non-threatening person. I can walk into any space and I like to meet anybody and everybody. So I can knock on the door and people invite me in all the time. That's a weird intervention. I don't know why people have been so generous, but everywhere I've been, all over the world, almost everybody I've asked to participate in this project has. And my work is about neighbors meeting neighbors. And I think it just shows how we all desperately do want to meet each other. But we just don't get the chance much anymore. When you're buying your avocados on Fresh Direct and you're not going to the corner store anymore, you're not meeting your neighbors. So yeah, I definitely think my work is about intervention at the very start.
For sure. And honestly, those avocados are more expensive when you get them online anyway. So you should
true.
go to the
You
market,
should
go
go
in
to the
person.
market, exactly.
Okay, so Aundre, Echo Chamber was deliberately multimedia, right? Did the intervention feel like a tool choice or more of a structural decision?
I think every time we pause a subject's life or their process, every time we add a new piece of media, we're getting a slight variation on the truth. It can still be rooted in the truth of where they are, what they're doing, how they're feeling, but like the truth of what our lens-based art does is a recreation of a moment. Oh my God, I think this quote is just like coming to me in real time. I think it's Cameron Lucida. They talk about like, by Roland Barthes, he talks about, I'm trying to find the quote, that like the camera, like a camera is you're taking an image that is a version of the truth. I'm butchering this, but largely like, if it, as long as it is rooted in the truth, then it is true, but if it's not, then it is worthless. I don't know if that's exactly true given the path that I've been on and the path that you've been on as well. But I think that like every time there is a piece of media intervention, we are accepting the fact that like, especially once motion's introduced and I'm trying to be in complete control of the audio in a space, or like cutting the AC, we're moving where they are, we're like making sure that I'm not missing anything that can be distracting. Like, it does alter it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I think it just then requires that much more time to like get to that like clear view of the accountability you're talking about. Because it's like, this year has been an interesting process for me. I've had director on my title for a couple years, but this year I've shot a ton of stuff. I've been really happy about it. But even, I was just doing this thing about sickle cell anemia, and I had this lovely time meeting real patients and real doctors, but just them adjusting to the fact that we need them on set to film them was so much of a different reality than if we went to each of their practices and spent the whole day with them. But like, you know, capitalism, things are expensive. And so like the practice of making a version of the reality has been like a very interesting thing as we all keep kind of chasing the term authentic, you know?
Yeah. Well, speaking to authenticity, as someone who basically lives on the internet as my career, I think this kind of question begs the answer: do you think audiences still care how an image is made, and or just how it looks, and has that changed?
I think that you are a perfect use case of this. I think that if people trust you as an artist, you have more runway. So like I don't know if you still do it because I don't wake up super early anymore, but every day you were posting like a beautiful good morning image, and you, like every triumph that you had with your audience, if you guys don't follow, you should follow Elise. You'll get what I'm talking about.
Gas me up.
There was this part where even you designed hats and maybe a jersey for the Cubs. It was a big deal. And everyone in Chicago was like, this is really important. And so like so much of your journey and your authenticity was then rooted in that work of yours. And so I think that the fact that, I mean, we've had the ability to augment images forever, not forever, but for quite a long time. It's not just a brand new thing. It's just the speed and the ability to do it more quickly now. And so that's why we do need like institutions and pillars of trust in galleries, publications, et cetera. And as long as they don't abuse that, I think that there is the ability for those things to have a place. Obviously, tomorrow I don't want to see a New York Times cover that is manipulated because that's not helpful. But like, there is manipulation in all of this. That doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it's like rooted in what we believe the truth that we're trying to tell is. And so, I don't know.
For sure.
Maybe you guys have a
Seems
different
rooted in
opinion.
expression.
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on it. I think that people care more about who it is, you know, who's telling the story. The point of view is something that I think about a lot. I think that finding a way to identify with people, to sort of like create connection, seems to be the only way forward, just because like from what I see, it doesn't seem like people are as interested in truth, you know, and people are far more interested in things like identity, whether or not they can feel connected to someone that they can relate to, you know, like relatability, you know, is something that, for better or worse, I see as a pattern when it comes to the way people consume images now. You know, when you were talking about your experience with that quote, you know, I'm very familiar with Barth, and I was curious as to what you thought about the difference between this idea of truth and witness, because I think that in between these kind of ideas of the sort of specificity of personhood and storytelling has to do with this kind of question of bearing witness as opposed to the factuality, the sort of truthiness is like a term that, like a grad school term, truthiness. So this kind of concept, I'm really interested in witness. I'm really interested in the body itself as a kind of talisman for truth, you know, more than because like I hold the power, I get to sort of dictate what happened or what didn't happen, you know. So I think that I spent a lot of time like angry about how much people didn't care about facts, you know, but I think that somewhere in that there's this kind of, but are you even like for me? Are you on my side? Are you like, advocating for me? Is I think where that disconnect comes from.
Absolutely.
So.
And what I understand from that is that community is becoming more important than ever.
Yeah.
And that authenticity in that community. And Gail, I think you can speak to this much differently as well, as I know Aundre was gassing me up and telling everyone how great I am on social media. But like, is there a difference between the commercial context and fine art context here?
I don't think there is anymore, because I feel like our pictures could end up anywhere, and we don't know. For me, it's interesting, you're talking a lot about the audience of the images. My feeling about how I make images is I don't know where they're going to go. So I better really enjoyed the process, and that has to be really satisfying of making the pictures. And I think my pictures are about building community and building relationships. I hope they're very successful in the fine art world. But if not, I feel like I've made the world different. So it's not just about the pictures, but it's about the fact that two people are getting married because they met through one of my pictures. That matters to me more than where the pictures end up, because I can't control that anymore. And about truthiness, I mean, there's a photographer who loves my pictures, and I'm so flattered, but what he's turned the love into is using some of the new tools to make them his own. And I see them on Instagram, and they're very successful. And I am so flattered by it. Imitation is the best form of flattery. But I know that I'm the one who got to have that relationship. I'm the one who got to introduce the neighbors. So to me, that's more important.
Understanding.
In my practice.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like your outlook on that, because I don't know if I would be as positive. So I think one of the things I noticed at Adobe, just wrapping up this kind of section of the conversation, is I think creators more than ever are curious about, they want the result, but they also want to know how it was made. And I think that's kind of the gist of all of these conversations here, is they want to know who's behind it and how did they make it and why should it matter to them at the end of the day, right? And I think that, again, changes the relationship to the work tremendously. Okay, so Aundre, since you've been pretty outspoken about how tools shape storytelling, what's one specific tool or technique, like analog, digital, whatever, that completely changed the way you work?
Oh, that's a good question.
And not just made it easier, but, actually changed it.
I think there's a lot of different ways to go here. To be super honest with you, I remember I was working at this startup, it was years ago. I don't know if any of you are familiar with, there's a Chicago-based artist, his name's Paul Octavius.
Oh, Paul, love Paul.
Super talented. I loved his work, and I got to intern one summer in Chicago. And it just happened the newspaper I was interning with, they hired him to make these miniatures of Chicago for their Best of Chicago series. So I had the opportunity to get to meet and hang out with him. It was awesome. And I remember, I feel like it was like right after this Instagram stories came out, and he was like, I remember, you never forget it, he said, people are gonna hate this, but this gives everyone a chance to be less perfect, and to me, that's really special. And so I would say some mix of like probably the iPhone 4 and how we then started to talk about photography on the internet. I recognize that this has made a lot of people's lives harder and devalued some people's work, so let me be very clear to say that I'm not like, this is amazing all the time. But I do think that the ability for us to get the opportunity to interact with work more quickly, like we're not always gonna have APAD, we're not always gonna have Photoville, but just a reminder to like see and make things is really, really cool. And so for me, it's just being able to interact with things that I would never see otherwise, that maybe I was only seeing if I picked up the newspaper in the morning or a magazine, but just being able to like see into what was happening in Gaza last year. Like just the proliferation of like having some sort of camera with me made it a practice of observation that could then have sometimes an immediate result. Often that intervention wouldn't go well and the image would suck, but there are some images and pieces of motion that I've made because of this huge kind of sweep of the internet age. So that was what I'd say has changed things for me.
For sure, yeah. And you know what's cool about Paul? Paul knows how to do everything.
Yeah.
But he's also really into AI right now,
Yeah.
which I think is really interesting.
Also, if you haven't met Paul before, he's like 6'5". Just want to warn everybody. He's way taller than you think he is.
He's huge. Gail, is there a tool you resisted before you tried it?
You know, it's funny, there are a couple tools, but one, I did resist digital, anything digital. I started on film. My first job, I shot on Chrome for the New York Times Magazine, and I remember FedExing the film and just praying it got there okay, and 3 days later went to print for the magazine, and it was this big. And a few weeks ago, I had a big spread in the New York Times Magazine, and we finished shooting at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. It was live by 7 o'clock that night.
goodness.
And now I was like, why did I ever resist this? I didn't have to worry about FedEx or a snowstorm or anything. So I laugh at myself that I resisted that. But the other thing that I resisted was letting my subjects see the picture before it was
yeah.
done. And now I actually connect my camera to my computer, I Zoom with them, and they are in real time seeing the picture I'm making. And I'm giving up some of the control to be a more collaborative person. And it's been really fun. I like it. Neighbors know much more about each other than I know about them. So that collaboration has made the pictures much more complicated and interesting. So having done the similar work for so long and seeing how technology has really changed it, and now I can direct an opera instead of just like a little short story, it's really fun.
I love that. Yeah, you're very brave to show them the before and
I know,
create.
it was really scary at first, but it's turned out pretty well.
Honestly, you look at my work, I only take photos of buildings. So I used to take pictures of people, but that changed after someone asked me, can I see it? Can I see it? Can I see it? And I was like, it doesn't look the same. Do you have anything to add?
I was just going to ask, why did you change?
I started during COVID photographing remotely, so people had to see the pictures.
Okay, yeah.
And I realized people have really good ideas. Like, why should my ideas are limited. If I have two people working, I have twice as many ideas. So I had resisted it because shooting ad work, which I did for a long time, I didn't love the art director always telling me what to do, but I feel like the subject should have a voice in how they're represented.
Sure.
I think that overlaps with your work too. I think we all deserve the chance to say, okay, this is how I want to be seen. So I resisted it. It was not the right decision. I'm glad I've come around.
Of course. Well, I feel like you touched on this a little bit, and considering I've kind of figured out that it requires a lot of logistics to do Out My Window series, and I'm assuming a lot of improvisation across the experience. How much of that process is planned versus discovered while you're in it?
I love to plan. I plan every single detail. I know exactly where I'm going to shoot, when I'm going to shoot. I study how the sun's going to set. But then it might pour. The picture I have out there in the Fair of Fire Island, it did pour, and I only had that day to make the picture. So all my planning went away, and I had to figure something out. And I think human life is completely unpredictable. I don't know how. I don't work with actors or models. I work with real people in their real homes. They're not trained to take my direction. So no matter how much planning I do, in the end, it's the improvisation that works. And that's where the digital tools have made it a lot easier because I can respond a lot faster. When I first started working, it was all with 4x5 film and hot lights, and I had to have people stay still. I can say in like 10 languages, 1, 2, 3, stay still. I don't do that anymore. Now I'm shooting with strobe across the street, maybe 2 blocks away. And I can, because of the digital tools, the improvisation's gotten a lot easier. So I don't like to fail, but I embrace failure more because the tools allow me to do that and try again.
For sure. And I also noticed there's children in the work as well, so I'm assuming that's a whole other
Lots
thing.
of children and lots of dogs, and that definitely changed when I switched to more digital, because with a 4x5 film, if you're asking people to stay still, and I only had kind of 1 or 2 shots where the inside and the outside light would match perfectly, I wasn't gonna risk it with a dog. And one of the pictures I have out there, there's a dog eating cake. Like, I can't believe I could do that. But yeah, so there's a lot of improv now.
Of course, that makes sense. Okay, so David, let's chat with you about this real quick. So how does technology help make your work distinctly yours? Because we know now, like, there's just millions of images that are just put directly in our face immediately as we open our phones. Like, how do you make that happen?
Distinctly mine. I'm always trying to figure out what the best tool is for what I'm trying to do. But honestly, a lot of times I'm finding myself, at least like thinking back to my entire career, you know, going back to grad school, I was operating from a little bit of a contrarian point of view, where because I felt like there was this strong push towards everybody to be shooting digitally, I was like, no, I'm gonna shoot film. And of course, like anybody, if you really want to, you're gonna advocate for whatever it is you want to do as an artist. And you know, when I started teaching, I really started thinking more critically about the potential for digital, especially like right now I'm working on a lecture series about exposure and metering, and the radical improvements that we've been able to make when it comes to rendering dark skin tones, right? Like, and you know, trying to express these things to my filmmaker friends who are like as, you know, obsessed with film tones as I am, and I'm just like, I'm telling you, this is good. You know, the skin looks better. And I know you care about this as much as I care about this, right? So what are we gonna do? You know? So, and yeah, questions like that, you know, have been top of mind, you know, when it comes to addressing how to monumentalize a subject, you know, whether that is, you know, archival or reenactment or, you know, present day story, whatever it is, like what's the best sort of way to do that. And I've had to rethink some things. I've had to admit I was wrong. I was wrong about the digital.
It's okay to be wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
Only sometimes.
So,
Yeah, well, what I'm understanding, at least from this, is I guess the difference that it makes is what you really care about.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's our expression in everything that we do. Do you think that there's risk in the more intuitive tools get, the more they pull everyone kind of towards the same thing?
Yes, because I think that all of these different technologies, you know, whether it's Chrome, negative print film, digital, all of the new, you know, AI tools that you have, and Photoshop, as well as some of the motion software, I definitely think that there is opportunities lost when it comes to discovery, when it comes to the discovery of, you know, maybe you fail at something and you discover the fact that like something about that failure is very human, and something about it is relatable to people, you know? Like now that everything is you know, in such sharp focus, you know, maybe things look even like hyper real, more real than is even comfortable. And I think about this a lot too with motion blur, like what level of motion blur is correct now that everybody can shoot at 120 frames a second, 240 frames a second, you know? But any you know, filmmaker is gonna, 24 is the right way. But that comes from a very specific history, you know, that we're attached to through maybe nostalgia, one would say, you know, and I'm guilty of that. Like, I like old clothes, I like old cars, records, books, but I mean, the academic in me definitely sees that as a kind of folly, you know, so.
Understood. And at Adobe, I think that's kind of one of the things that we're constantly focused on is how can we amplify people's voices and not just replace it, and kind of make people feel like they're the creator and not more like the tool. And I think that's something I've struggled with too a lot, just being a post-processor and a surrealist, you know, is how do I put my 2 cents in without relying too much on a motion blur effect, you know? And now so many people do that. When I did it, it wasn't a thing. Now everybody does it, so that's cool, that's fine. Okay, so we've got about 3.5 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we're really getting into the nitty-gritty. And David, I think you can kind of talk to this a little bit, like when AI becomes part of the process, whether it's generating, suggesting, or completing, how do you think about authorship?
I think about pre-existing archives, you know, because what bothers me about narratives about AI or opinions about AI is the idea that it has the potential to be neutral, you know, as if it's not, you know, trained on very specific histories, you know, that come, you know, from specific power structures, right? Like, what if you know, if we deal with AI only from a Western lens specifically because the sort of companies that are able to, you know, implement those things are able to. So everything is typically through a lens of power, typically when it comes to any type of history, to any type of way information is aggregated. Because I think that AI is a process of aggregating information, not necessarily creating new information. Right? Like, and I think that it's important to note that. And it seems like it's oftentimes overlooked. And there's a danger in that because the questions around that have to be right now. It can't be in the next generation because I do my best when it comes to, you know, the literacy gap in generations, right? But it's happening, you know?
It's happening.
So, in the same way that, like, I'm an engineer that has, or I was trained as an engineer with very, very little arithmetic skills, you know, because I can use a calculator like gangbusters, you know. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the future. So. Yeah,
it is the future, and it is right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 56 seconds left. We talked about a lot of good stuff today, and I'm sure we could go on for 2 more hours plus. We should probably start a podcast. Okay, so we'll end on this. What genuinely excites you each about where photography is headed? And not a cautious answer. I want a real one. Gail?
So I see some students of mine here, and I am excited that the generation of students now is growing up very photographic literate. They don't necessarily know how to read images as well as they can, and that's where I hope the elder statesmen, we get to teach them, but they really know how to make them. So there are going to be a lot more interesting pictures, and we'll see a lot more of the world.
Absolutely. Aundre?
I think jumping off of your point about seeing a lot more of the world, I think one plus of technology is that as things accelerate, we generally raise the expectation of the technology that folks get to have access to. And so, like, to go back to the Gaza example, I think if certain wars were happening 15 years ago, the images we were getting out of them were specifically from power structures, from specific people that were in the space going in to photograph it. But just having a deluge of image-making devices has made it really helpful for us to be able to understand and bear witness through the lenses of others that are present in the space. So I think that's really exciting, just for us to maybe reintroduce a conversation about truth through folks that otherwise were often subjects and very rarely operators.
I would say the end of the technical sort of virtuoso, image maker, right? Like I see a future where people invest much more in experience and research and the things that sort of like bring you to the image rather than the limitations of like how to get a camera. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because they're like pretty much, it's like it's for free in my pocket. Yeah. You know, I already have it. So, and that to me is democratic in a way that is hurtful because I like invested decades in becoming a technical sort of guy. But I mean, that's the whole point of, you know, the DJ stuff. It's just like it's the same thing, you know? Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say?
Yeah, please. I mean, yeah.
I was just going to say, thank you guys for having us, and thank you guys for coming. This is a beautiful room. I want to live in here.
Yeah.
I just want to take a minute and really appreciate all of you strangers and Elizabeth Christ for choosing to come and listen to us talk.
It's very sweet of you. And I also touch on that real quick. I'm one of the first iPhone photographers ever, and I used to get bullied back in the day by real photographers telling me that I wasn't a real artist, which is crazy to think about how everyone's a photographer on their phones now. Okay, so to wrap up, again, like Aundre said so lovingly, thank you all for being here today. What a beautiful day to just hear from some incredible people doing incredible things and pushing the envelope. Appreciate you. So this conversation, I think, is exactly why this show exists, because photography is not just photography, as we've heard. It's a record, it's a question, a relationship, an argument with time, so to speak. So Aundre, David, Gail, thank you for making work that earns this complexity, and thank you for sharing with us today.
Thanks for having
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.